What if the U.S. Navy actually managed to make a massive warship completely disappear? This isn't science fiction, but a chilling legend from the darkest days of World War II. In 1943, Allied supply lines were being decimated by relentless German submarine wolf packs. Desperation pushed the American military to explore the absolute bleeding edge of theoretical physics. Rumors suggest they turned to the revolutionary and controversial ideas of Albert Einstein. Their ultimate goal was a unified field theory, bending light around a solid object. They called it Project Rainbow, a top-secret initiative shrouded in absolute darkness. The primary test subject was the USS Eldridge, a brand-new destroyer escort. Hidden in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, the vessel underwent strange and unprecedented modifications. Workers were ordered to install massive copper coils across the entire deck of the ship. Heavy generators were placed below deck, designed to project an enormous magnetic field. Sailors watched nervously as miles of heavy cabling were wrapped around the heavy steel hull. On July 22, 1943, the first test was allegedly conducted under strict military supervision. The heavy switches were thrown, and the massive generators began to whine with terrifying power. The very air around the ship began to crackle with an intense, unnatural static charge. Witnesses claimed a thick, eerie green fog began to slowly roll across the harbor water. Slowly, the massive steel warship became entirely invisible to nearby enemy radar systems. But the experiment went further than anyone expected. It began to vanish from human sight completely. All that remained was the empty water and a faint glowing outline of the massive hull. The Navy apparently achieved the impossible, creating a perfect cloaking device for their fleet. However, when the generators were shut down, the terrifying reality of the experiment was revealed. Crew members were violently sick, severely disoriented, and complaining of overwhelming nausea and headaches. Despite the alarming physical toll, the desperate military refused to abandon their breakthrough project. They adjusted the volatile equipment, preparing the crew for a second, even more powerful test run. October 28, 1943. The Eldridge was once again powered up in the cold Philadelphia harbor. This time, the electromagnetic field was pushed far beyond the original safety parameters. The suffocating green fog returned, thicker and more violent, sparking with erratic blue lightning. In a sudden, blinding flash of pure light, the USS Eldridge didn't just turn invisible. The massive 1,200-ton warship vanished entirely, leaving a gaping void in the ocean water. But the ship had not just been cloaked, it had torn through the fabric of space. Hundreds of miles away, at a naval base in Norfolk, Virginia, witnesses watched in pure shock. The massive hull of the Eldridge materialized completely out of thin air before their eyes. It lingered in the southern harbor for several agonizing minutes as men stood paralyzed with fear. Then, just as suddenly as it had violently appeared, the ghostly vessel vanished once again. In a flash, it instantly returned to its original dock in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The project leaders rushed onto the deck, completely unprepared for the sheer horror awaiting them. The devastating side effects of bending space and time had torn the crew completely apart. Some sailors were entirely missing, simply erased from existence during the unimaginable teleportation process. Others were wandering the deck in a state of absolute, unbreakable mental collapse and insanity. But the most horrifying sight of all lay beneath the thickest layers of the green fog. Several men had been molecularly fused into solid steel bulkheads of the warship itself. They were trapped halfway between dimensions, their bodies merged perfectly with the cold, unyielding metal. Horrified commanders quickly realized the catastrophic human cost of manipulating the fabric of reality. They immediately shut the operation down, determined to bury the nightmarish failure forever. Survivors were swiftly placed in high-security military asylums and legally sworn to absolute secrecy. All official records of Project Rainbow were quietly gathered, locked away, and allegedly incinerated. The USS Eldridge was hastily stripped of its experimental generators and sent into standard deployment. For over a decade, the terrifying events of that October night remained completely buried in silence. It seemed the government had successfully erased one of the greatest scientific disasters in human history. But secrets of this massive magnitude rarely stay hidden in the shadows forever. In 1955, an amateur astronomer and author named Morris K. Jessup published a book on UFOs. Shortly after publication, Jessup received a series of highly erratic, handwritten letters. The sender called himself Carlos Allende, and his letters contained absolutely explosive military claims. Allende claimed he was on a nearby merchant ship and witnessed the Eldridge disappear with his own eyes. He detailed the gruesome side effects, describing men freezing in time and bursting into flames. Jessup initially dismissed the wild letters as the ramblings of a deeply disturbed individual. But then, the Office of Naval Research mysteriously summoned Dr. Jessup to Washington, D.C. They showed him a copy of his own book, heavily annotated with inexplicable scientific details. The annotations perfectly aligned with Allende's claims and referenced advanced physics known only to military insiders. Paranoia quickly consumed Jessup as he realized he had stumbled into a massive government cover-up. He spent years obsessively trying to uncover the exact truth behind the Philadelphia experiment. But the immense pressure of the investigation began to fracture his mental health severely. In 1959, Jessup was found in his car, suffocated by carbon monoxide poisoning. The authorities immediately ruled it a suicide, closing the case with suspicious speed. However, many firmly believed he was assassinated to prevent him from exposing the terrifying truth. With Jessup dead, the United States Navy finally released their official stance on the infamous experiment. They completely denied any involvement in invisibility cloaking or teleportation technology. Instead, they claimed the entire myth was born from a simple misunderstanding of a routine procedure. During World War II, ships were frequently wrapped in electrical cables to neutralize their magnetic signature. This mundane process, known as degaussing, simply made the ships invisible to magnetic underwater mines. The military insisted that Allende had simply watched a degaussing test and let his imagination run wild. They also provided logs showing the USS Eldridge was nowhere near Philadelphia on that specific date. But seasoned conspiracy theorists quickly pointed out glaring inconsistencies in the Navy's airtight narrative. Military logs from that era were notoriously altered, forged, or entirely missing when investigated. And veteran sailors from the Eldridge consistently refused to speak to journalists about their wartime experiences. Those who did speak out often gave conflicting accounts, almost as if their memories had been tampered with. Was the entire story an elaborate hoax engineered by a single unstable mind? Or was Carlos Allende a genuine patriot trying to expose a crime against the laws of nature? Even decades later, new witnesses occasionally emerge from the shadows with shocking deathbed confessions. They speak of secret underground bases where the teleportation experiments quietly continued into the 1980s. They claim the Philadelphia experiment was just the very first step in a much larger, darker project. These stories inevitably bleed into the infamous Montauk Project, blurring the line between fact and total fiction. Skeptics argue that human beings possess an intrinsic psychological need for thrilling, unexplainable mysteries. The Cold War era was fertile ground for profound paranoia and deep distrust of government motives. Perhaps the Philadelphia experiment is simply the greatest modern myth ever spun from wartime anxieties. A story constructed from half-truths, scientific illiteracy, and the trauma of global conflict. And yet, a small lingering doubt remains in the back of every historian's mind. Science has made exponential leaps that were once considered pure magic. Modern militaries are currently researching incredibly advanced metamaterials capable of true visual cloaking. Quantum entanglement has proven that particles can indeed interact instantly across vast, impossible distances. If modern science is only now scratching the surface of these mind-bending possibilities, is it entirely impossible that a desperate nation stumbled upon the secret prematurely in 1943? Did they unlock a terrifying power of the universe only to realize humans were not ready for it? The USS Eldridge was eventually sold to the Greek Navy after the war ended. It served decades of peaceful missions before finally being sent to the scrapyard in the 1990s. No strange anomalies were ever reported during its long, mundane tenure in international waters. But the dark legend of what happened in Philadelphia refuses to fade away into history. It remains a haunting reminder of the horrific price of unchecked scientific ambition. A chilling warning that some invisible boundaries of reality should never, ever be crossed. So ask yourself, was it a failed experiment or simply the greatest ghost story of the 20th century?